Day from Radio Row, talking tonight's Slap 6, tomorrow's UFC, and of course Sunday's big game, the Super Bowl. Let's welcome our next guest. Been on the show before. Very honored to have back Michael Bisping. Mike, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Very busy, tired, and apparently out of range on the microphone. But yeah, no, I'm good. How you been?
Not bad. You know, this is one of my favorite events. Radio Row is absolutely unbelievable. But what really excites me, and I tell Dana this every year as well, I've covered the UFC longer than anybody, started at UFC 1, and, you know, back when nobody cared, cockfighting, this, that, the other, and how far the UFC and MMA has come. But watching mainstream media now accept our sport, your sport, the one that I'm fortunate enough to cover, what is it like to walk around this place and see what's happening and people wanting you and wanting to talk to you about your life and about the sport?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for covering the sport and being so passionate about it from an early start, because if it wasn't for guys like you, then maybe it wouldn't have got to where it is today. And it's funny that you say that, because I notice that all the time. It's always growing in popularity. And the way that I gauge that is when I grew up in the northwest of England, this small, tiny little town, nobody knew what mixed martial arts was, and certainly none of my friends or extended group of friends knew what it was. But then when I log on to my personal Facebook page sometimes and I have a look on a Sunday morning or a Monday morning because of the time difference, I know everyone back home in the town I'm from, they're all talking about the fights like they're experts, and they didn't have a clue. But to answer your question, walking around here, and yeah, you're doing all the big name media and stuff like that, they all have a pretty good knowledge of the sport, and it's fantastic to see.
What is it like for you, and you know, when other celebrities from other sports, case in point, 2 years ago, Chuck Liddell's doing the show, Joe Montana is leaning over a chair watching Chuck Liddell.
Yeah.
So what's it like when, you know, Pat McAfee or some of these guys are like, hey, there goes Michael Bisping, there goes Chuck Liddell. What's that feeling like?
Yeah, it's very surreal. It's strange. It's very, very strange, because, you know, I mean, we're all certainly fighters. We're just normal guys. You know what I mean? We're just very, very normal guys. And then when you start to get recognition and things like that, it's wild. I remember my first ever, like, celebrity interaction, if you will. Where was it? I think it was UFC 60 or something like that, 61, I'm not sure. Anyway, I get a tap on the shoulder, and I look round, and it's Wesley Snipes. And he says, how you doing, champ? And I'm like, you know who I am? He's like, yeah, of course I do. I watched you all the time on The Ultimate Fighter. And I was like, and I was very uncool. Do you know what I mean? And he wanted to get away as quick as possible. You know what I mean?
Right.
But, yeah, no, it's very, very strange.
So obviously England, Europe have a long history of boxing, combat sports. You now see Tom Aspinall on top of the world. You see Mick Terrell in the bare knuckle. Obviously your success in the UFC. So what's that like, coming from a historical, you know, combat community to be the top of the threshold? Yeah,
I mean, like, so the UK's always had a steep history in combat sports. You know, obviously, as a country, they've always loved boxing for a very, very long time. But mixed martial arts was they were a little slow to the party, so to speak, you know. And even still, to this day, for example, like, you know, I'm very lucky enough. I do a little bit of acting. I hate saying that, but I do a little bit here and there. And last year, I was in Bulgaria, and I was talking about the UFC. Leon Edwards was fighting, right? And this other actor who I'm very good friends with now, he's like, oh, I don't like it. He said, I'm the biggest boxing fan ever, but I don't like it. It's very brutish and thuggish, and it's a bit barbaric, and, you know, I had to take him to school and, like, educate him a little bit. And then I did Talk Sport, and there's this guy, Simon Jordan, who's a very well-spoken guy that owns one of the Premier League football clubs. And he was saying the same thing. He said, do you know what? I went to one event, and the crowd, they were very, very, I didn't like it. They were very rough. I said, all right, hold on a minute. I said, I can understand you saying that the sport isn't for you, perhaps. I said, but you're going to compare the crowds? I've been to many a boxing event, my friend. So don't say that we're some, like, lowest common denominator and we're in a much lower demographic because of our fan base. So that was crazy. But, of course, you know, everyone's coming around now, and they're slowly but surely understanding. And, yeah, you know, listen, the UK is doing great. We've got Leon Edwards as champ, Tom Aspinall as an interim champ, and hopefully more to come.
You know, back in the day, you know, as you're telling that story, I had two disagreements. We'll leave it at that. On the street corner, one with Bert Sugar, who ended up becoming my boxing expert, you know, would always do the show. The other, Michael Wilbon, okay? They disliked MMA. They
Yep.
Even stronger than dislike, but we won't go there. And I asked the one question, because you can dislike anything you want. Have you seen it? And they both said no.
Sure.
I'm like, watch it. And then if you don't like it, at least you tried. But at least give it a try.
Yeah.
So I want to swing that over to tonight's event, the power slap.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's the beginning of the UFC back in the day, and give it a try.
Absolutely. And this is what I say all the time. I mean, look, listen, you can't sit here and pretend it's as technical as a sport, because it's not. It really isn't. But in terms of an event, I truly mean it. When I'm commentating those fights, and I am having the time of my life. It is so exciting. We all love a knockout. It's one of the most exciting things in boxing or mixed martial arts, whatever. The knockouts are fantastic. They come thick and fast, okay? And the crowd go insane. It is such an amazing, exciting night out, and the way they put the show together and the production and, just all the theatrics of it, it's phenomenal. And then when you hear about the backstories of these people that do it, because let's remember, Dana White didn't invent this. It's a thing that happens all over the world, okay? People do it for next to no money and behind pubs or all over the world, in like some barnyard somewhere or wherever, right? So these people are doing this stuff anyway. Now they're having proper medical testing. They're earning proper money. They're getting sponsors. There's one young man on there. I say this story all the time, Cole Young. His son has a very rare condition, which means, very sadly, he's not going to be with us much longer. And because we always speak to the fighters and we say, why do you do this? And he tells us about his son. And just today we were talking to him again, and his son has some big swollen stomach, and he's having a liver transplant. He's giving his son his own liver. Apparently his liver will grow back, part of it. I didn't even know he could do that. But he says this allows him to spend more time at home. And there's a lot of people that come from, maybe they're mixed martial arts that couldn't make it. Maybe they're, for whatever reason, life didn't go the way they planned it, but they've got a skill. They can give a shot. They can take a shot. And then there's other people, they're just pure adrenaline junkies.
Right.
They say, do you know how good it feels to stand there and let someone slap you like that?
No, I don't.
Yeah, no. He says, but then you get to slap them back, right? And I'm like, I get it. I can kind of understand it, So all these people, they sit there and they ridicule it and they like to criticize. Come to a show, watch it. All right, granted, it might not be for some people, but I tell you what, you cannot deny the excitement.
I always tell, people, who are you to tell somebody else what they can and can't do,
Yes.
as long as it's legal. So I hadn't seen Power Slap. I always say that I've covered the UFC since UFC 1. Well, I got on the Power Slap late. I started at Power Slap 3, okay? And I'm very invested in this, and a lot of the UFC know why. First, I wasn't real familiar with it, and you're right, the event was incredible. I lost one of my closest friends. It's a story I won't tell on air. I'll tell you off the air. Who told me don't ever talk to me again because I went to Power Slap instead of another event.
Wow.
I needed to go to it to be able to talk about it.
Yep.
And just the adrenaline and everything of that night was incredible.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for later tonight.
Yeah, no, it is going to be another fantastic show as always. And these guys, they're showmen. They love this. They put on a fantastic show. The lights, the music, the sound, the theatrics, the entire production. And it's just going to get bigger and bigger. And while there's still people that criticize mixed martial arts still this day, there will always be people that criticize that. But if you came along and you gave it a fair shake, you'd probably enjoy it, unless you're just the type of person that's going to get offended at everything. Right? So just stay at home and hate on everything.
So I feel like I've seen videos in your kitchen of your son trying to take you down, wrestling. As Randy has a son named Sean, adult son, there's always that period where the son overtakes the father. Have we achieved that level yet? Is he there to take the champ?
Yeah. So he comes home. He lives in San Francisco now. He was on a wrestling scholarship up there. And he's graduated now, but he's trying to make a life up there. I've said, son, of all bloody places to try and make a life, why are you choosing the most expensive rundown city in the world? But anyway, I digress. But he comes home, and he's a big old boy. He's like 260, 65 pounds. I've never been anywhere near that. And, of course, he was on a wrestling scholarship. He's a very good wrestler. So every time he grabs hold of me, and I try, and I'm not going to lie, he just throws me around like a rag doll. He does. But I tell him the same thing every time, and he knows what I'm going to say. I say, Callum, listen, remember, the best takedown in the book, left hook. Okay, and you can't box for shit.
Funny story. So I have a studio at the house, and my co-host came to the house one day to do the show, and he opens the front door, and there's all he sees is legs. So it's my son and I were grappling in the kitchen. He didn't know if we were really fighting or anything. We were just grappling and having a really good time, which is funny. I hope this isn't a controversial question, but I'd like to ask you if it's okay. I have an issue with Hall of Fame. Okay. So, and I say it all the time. If you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. I believe the fight wing, you're not a Hall of Famer. The fight is in the Hall of Fame. And when a lot of MMA media and a lot of MMA fighters disagree with me, I say if you go to the Major League Baseball, the NHL, the pro football, a football is in there, but not the person necessarily who threw it. They're not a Hall of Famer. And I always say it's disrespectful, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, and if you don't want to answer, that's fine. I always say it's disrespectful to the legends, to the Hall of Famers. I mean, Frank Trigg is one of my closest friends. I literally love that man. He's not a Hall of Famer. His fight is in the Hall of Fame. I'm curious, if you would respond.
Look, listen, I certainly see your perspective, but I don't want to sit here also at the same time and criticize and take away any accomplishments from people that have gone out there and done that. But I see your point. Of course I do. And, but Hall of Fame worthy fights like that are what made this sport so big in the first place. And it's why guys like me even had a career. You know what I mean? So I get your point. And maybe I should go into politics after this. But I've done a really good job of not answering the question as a UFC commentator.
It is good. Before we run out of time, talk about Saturday night. The UFC is out at the Apex. What can we look forward to?
Yeah, I'm not commentating this one Saturday night, but I do know about the main event. I haven't studied the card from top to bottom. Obviously, when you're researching fight cards, it's a lot of work, and I love commentating the UFC. I'm so lucky that I get to do that and still be involved with the sport at the highest level. So, yeah, truly passionate about it. That said, tremendous amount of work goes into studying for them. So I'm happy to have a weekend off this week and sit at home and enjoy it as a fan. But Jack Hermanson, I mean, he's a very, very good. The standout performance, obviously, was when he heel hooked Kelvin Gastelum. He beat Chris Curtis by a close decision. So he's well-rounded and good on the feet. All depends, can he take the power? Can he take away the hype of this young man, Joey Pyfer? I mean, Joey Pyfer apparently hits harder than Francis Ngannou. Not once, not twice, but many times. So it wasn't a fluke. So incredible punching power. I think he's got a good wrestling pedigree. Trains with a good team as well. So it's going to be interesting because Joey Pyfer is handling himself like a superstar. Seems to have all the ingredients to be a superstar in the future, but you got to get through people like Jack Hermanson. And if he can do it in the fashion that he predicts he will, then who knows? Maybe we've got a big star in our hands.
Now, I caught a flight with Joe's team, and great guys. There's a middleweight on his team that he spars with that makes me look like a child.
Yeah.
He fights in middleweight. It's unbelievable, the talent. And this truly is a global sport because there's new pockets from different countries all over coming to Vegas to showcase their skill.
Oh, no, absolutely. It's wild. It is. I mean, we got almost every country in the bloody world these days. Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Dagestan.
All those stands.
we got the stands. We got the Aussies. We got the Kiwis. We got the Chinese. We got the Brits. It's everywhere. It's great. It's a global sport. And it's like Dana White always said. He always said it. He said, if you're walking down the street and two people get into a fight, you stop and you watch because you don't need to know the rules. A good fight, anyone can appreciate it.
Absolutely. Final question for you. Sunday, Super Bowl, Kansas City, San Francisco.